Good morning and welcome to NewsWare's Trade Talk for Friday, December 9th. Okay, let's get into the action. Take a look at the S&Ps, which are trading higher. We're up 0.17%. We're showing some nice green gains all morning long, so, you got to be positive walking into today. The situation is very fluid today. We got a lot of geopolitical news out there this morning. The situation in Venezuela remains fluid, although tensions have been easing because President Trump did announce the cancellation of the second wave of strikes, and that's positive. And then earlier this morning, he stated that the major oil companies are going to be investing $100 billion into Venezuela. And later today, he's scheduled to meet with these oil executives. You got to be careful on those numbers because you remember he touted all those plane orders that Boeing got, and then the Boeing CEO said, we didn't get the plane orders that the president was, touted. So a lot of that is best case scenarios when he makes those aggressive claims. What else are we seeing? We're seeing protests. These protests in Iran against the government continue to intensify. This is kind of creating regional instability, which you got to be concerned about. I heard something. I saw a fact saying the internet usage, which is typically at like 100% in Iran, is down to 5% in some areas. They're really just shutting it down. On Capitol Hill, they're moving forward with legislation for new sanctions against Russia. They also passed that bill on the ACA, Obamacare, health subsidies. That's positive. Key economic report for today. It's going to be that non-farm payroll report that's due out before the opening bell. In corporate news, hey, you got to be paying attention to the retail stocks this morning. The focus is really going to be on that Supreme Court decision on the IEEPA tariffs. That decision is expected today, after the bell most likely. So that could be a boom for some of these retailing stocks. Johnson & Johnson, they announced that they're going to be participating in Trump RX. They're going to be lowering some drug prices on selected drugs. Merck's out there. They're supposedly in talks to acquire RVMD. Remember, I was telling you the stock's in play. Aviva said they're not looking at it, but Merck apparently is. Meta Platforms, they announced the power supply agreement with OKLO. GM says that they're going to report a $6 billion charge. On the earnings front, WDFC, WD-40, stock's off by more than 8% after their earnings results late yesterday. But let's take a look overseas and let's take a look at what's happening over in Europe this morning. And, I'm looking at the DAX. The DAX is up 0.41% or 103 points. Industrial output unexpectedly rose in November, driven by a rebound in automobile production. Looking at the FTSE's up 0.52%, supported by strength in energy and defense stocks. And there's a lot of M&A chatter going on in the mining sector. That's kind of positive. the CAC in Paris is up 0.89%. You're seeing some strength in luxury stocks, a little M&A chatter there as well. Looking overseas in Asia last night, and we're looking at the Nikkei, which, came back from yesterday's losses. It was up 1.61% overnight, or 822 points, led by strength in autos and retail and stocks. Hong Kong finished higher by 0.32%, supported by gains in consumer and property names. China was up 0.92%. Defensive stocks, technology stocks drove that advance. Then we got to turn our attention into oil, and the oil action is always hot these days. And you look at a WTI, it's up 0.71%. It was up like 0.9%. Brent is up 43 cents to $62.42 a barrel. Markets don't like uncertainty. This Venezuelan situation is uncertain. It just continues to confuse the markets. And yesterday, oil jumped 4%. The key thing here is this legislation that's in Congress right now about pending new sanctions on Russian oil. These sanctions could be up to 500%. So they got green lighted by President Trump. He wants to do it. So the Republicans out there saying, "Hey, we have to do this." So that's causing oil prices spike. And then you got the Iran situation. They produce 2% of the global supply. So you look at Russia, which produces about a little over, 12%. And this is about, 15% of the world's oil supply that's kind of a bit in flux that, you got to be concerned about. And then Venezuela only does about 1%. But that situation seems to be a little better than it was yesterday. But the pending Russian sanctions and instability in Iran, that's really concerning the oil markets these days, which is why you see the prices moving higher. Okay, let's talk about earnings reports this morning, and we're going to start off with WDFC. The report wasn't bad. The stock is trading lower this morning. I mean, it's down, 8.76%, but they missed by 17 cents. Now, there's not a whole lot of estimates out there, so when you see that the losses are, exaggerated a bit. So the report wasn't horrible, but the stock is trading off. WDFC missed by 17 cents, and there were only two estimates that I saw out there last night. But upcoming, we got to talk about next week, because next week really is the start of earnings season. And you know what? Nothing's out there this afternoon, or nothing's happening on Monday, but on Tuesday, you know what happens on Tuesday? You got JP Morgan's earnings. You got Delta's earnings. You got Bank of New York, ticker BK. Their earnings are coming out. And then you also have, a couple other companies reporting as well. But these are the big three. And so, that's still going to be kicking off earnings season for the month of January. So let's keep an eye out on that. Okay, let's move on into, economic reports and see what we have on the economic front today. We got non-farm payrolls happening at 8:30 a.m. Listen, the non-farm payrolls are expected to call for job growth between 70,000 and 73,000 is the number I'm seeing mostly, which is higher than, last month's 64,000, but last month's numbers we knew were kind of sketchy because they weren't done with the complete month of the government being open. So these are going to be much more telling. But a number between 70 and 73,000 is expected. And then at 10 a.m. you get the consumer sentiment report. Expected to come in at 53.4. Not a great reading, but could cause some weakness. But that's what I have for you in terms of reports that are happening. In terms of Fed speak, we do have a couple guys on the docket today. At 10 a.m., we're going to hear from Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari, and then at 1:35 p.m., we're going to hear from Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin. Interesting. Okay, let's take a quick peek at the market, see what we got going on here. I'm looking at the Dow stocks. I got about 11 higher. 2 unchanged and the rest lower. So it's kind of a mixed opening this morning. I'm looking at my FANG stocks and they're definitely mixed. We got gains in Tesla, and Google, of course, but everything else is trading slightly lower. What do we know? Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, they're not going to be, the EU is going to be overhauling the digital rules, and supposedly these companies are not going to face heavy-handed regulation when the new rules come out. That's kind of a positive. Meta Platforms, META, they're said to be doing a deal with OKLO to develop a 1.2 gigawatt power campus in Pine Country, Ohio. Tesla, XAI, burned through $8 billion of cash in the first 9 months of 2025. Ooh, that's a lot. It's a drop in the bucket of what they could burn through, though. Okay, let's talk about Dow Jones 30 stocks. Johnson & Johnson reached an agreement with the U.S. government to lower drug costs. They're going to be part of Trump RX. You look at Johnson & Johnson this morning, stocks flat to higher. What else do we see? Yeah, Walmart and other retailers are on watch as a Supreme Court decision on the IEEPA tariffs is expected later today. Chevron on watch. President Trump to meet with Chevron and other oil executives regarding Venezuela today. What else do we have? RVMD, Richard Victor, Michael David, Revolutionary Medicines. Merck is said to be in talks. Remember, I think I saw 28 to 32 billion valuation. In terms of guidance, GM has taken a $6 billion charge in its fast-shrinking, money-losing EV business. They warned about this. They did a charge back about a quarter ago, and they said there's going to be more to come. So, yeah, here's your more. terms of buyback news, Guidewire, GWRE, Grace William, Richard Edward, they approved a 500 million share repurchasing program. In terms of catalyst calls, TSM, Citibank puts upside 30-day catalyst watch on the stock. TSM, Tom, Sam, Michael. Okay, let's move on to our pick of the day, which is Apple, AAPL. Listen, this tariff decision, it could prove to be a catalyst for the stock. I mean, you look at yesterday's call volume; it was positive, 739K versus 683K, but not bullish, but positive. Open interest 3 million versus 2.1 million. That's positive. Major brokers, they're raising price targets. They still love the stock, but. I mean, listen, the stock's trading 258.69. I'm hoping to get in at 258.75 around there. Under 258 is really what I'm hoping for, and I think that we could see some positive action. There's little stories out there about their December revenue in the App Store fallen slightly, which could cause some pullback in the stock. But if these IEEPA tariffs, if they get ruled illegal, and that money has to go back to the companies, Apple's going to get a windfall. And that's going to be positive for the stock. That's kind of why I like it. But that's my pick of the day: Apple AAPL, 257.75. Okay, let's move on to our hot off the press segment and see what's happened over the last 15 minutes or so. RGTI sees Selfis 1-108Q of general availability at the end of Q1. Trump's grand plan for housing relies on his Fed pick. Trump says Venezuela is cooperating, cancels further attack wave. Disney CEO meets with top Chinese officials at House of Mouse, navigates U.S.-China tensions. That's kind of positive. What else we got here? Costco, Restoration Hardware, RH. I mean, these are ones that you got to keep an eye on with the tariffs. Macy's, positive call volume yesterday. They did make an announcement that they're closing 14 stores, but that's kind of partly expected. That's all I'm seeing this morning. Okay, let's move on into our stock of the day from yesterday, which was Taiwan Semiconductor, TSM, Tom, Sam, Michael. They did come out with their data. Stock opened up at 324.39, but it fell. It fell down to 316 before closing at 318. I mean, I was looking for a number, I said 320, but I also pointed out it could fall to 318, 319. And here, today it traded as high as 321.50. It's positive. It's not a money maker, like, the 1% is what we're looking for. So it's a flat trade, but it wasn't bad. But, the numbers were just okay. They spinning it positive, because they're comparing it to year over year. But you really got to look at it month after month. And December's typically the weak month because of the holidays. But I don't think it was horrible. But, listen, stock's trading higher this morning. It's up 0.32%. Was up more. Actually hit 321.50. But, it's not 1% yet, but it could hit it later today. But that's concludes today's edition of NewsWare's Trade Talk. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.